And welcome everybody to the live stream. It's our weekly Wednesday live streams, and we'll be talking about whatever you like. So drop us a line if you've got something you'd like us to comment on. I've already got some ideas, and those include stuff like the fact that JFK Jr. appears to be the most attractive presidential candidate, more attractive than the incumbent president, than the previous president, and then the previous president's prime rival. Also, the Federal Reserve has hiked interest rates. Once again, another 0.25 basis points. Let us know in the comments what you think, if they're going to raise interest rates again at their next meeting in the next quarter. I've got some opinions on that for sure. So let us know all about that. And what else do we have? There's some other stories here also. What else do we have to talk about? Some flaring activity there on the closest star. You can see some flares showing up especially in the location we forecasted, the northwestern limb. And thanks for everybody who's left comments already, like Susie Snethead and Robert LaFollette and Smash Staff and Two Time. So yeah, thanks for tuning in to the weekly Wednesday live stream. These have become a fixture once again on the channel. And before we continue on, a brief note about the channel. Take a moment to visit our links. Today's featured product is Mensa, which stands for Make Earth Not Suck Again. It is up to you. So now I'm wearing the Mensa shirt, which stands for Make America Not Suck Again. And while that's scrolling, I'll talk about why I don't think the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates again. And there is a distinctly good reason for that, I assure you. It is because the federal government's debt will be too high. It will be impossible to service the debt with higher interest rates. So in order to keep hiking rates, somebody would have to reduce spending, and we all know that's not going to happen. So, and by the way, thanks to Son of Clay for letting me know that we received some sort of propaganda on our thumbnail from this morning's daily space weather video. So I suppose that was because I said there are 15 feet of snow from nearly coast to coast on Greenland this morning. Because facts in 2023 are very controversial. So anyway, again, visit the links below the video if you haven't done so far. If you haven't tuned into the daily space weather content, go check it out. It's just the most comprehensive daily space weather in the world, and also the most detailed solar imagery you'll find any place in the known universe. So it's part of our effort to put our money where our mouths are. We're having a little hiccup in our internet connection. Yeah, check out the Amazon shop at amazon.com/shop/smashomash. So this might just happen to be a stream of consciousness stream. So again, make sure you leave a comment if there's something that you'd like us to comment on. If you've got a breaking news story or something like that, we may be more than happy to cover it. So let's get back to what I started with. Let's see, what is the first story here? Yeah, so the Fed raises interest rates to a 22-year high. And Powell does not state that they're going to be done hiking rates. So that is not what you would call a preferred situation for the chief engineer at X, formerly known as Twitter, who has recently stated that the Fed should lower interest rates at once. I don't think Elon or any tech companies are going to be appreciative of the most recent rate hike, as a lot of these companies rely on cheap loans in order to prop up their own stock, right? So paying your executives and even your regular employees in stock options is sort of an artificial way to pump up your own share price. So also stock buybacks by the company itself, and it's just one of the many ways that the market is ultra reactive to interest rates. So that is the situation for interest rates. Up another 25 basis points, and the current interest rate is at I don't know, I don't keep track of it. The interest rate is now between 5.25 and 5.5%. So, and by the way, if you think that's capitalism, let me just remind you of something that I find myself typing repeatedly on social media. To all of the haters of capitalism, if you are less than 110 years old, you've never experienced capitalism. It was abolished in 1913 on December 23rd. That was when Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into law. The largest block of business in the world is the interest on international and corporate loans. To have a cartel of banks in control of that interest rate is not capitalism. There should be a market on lending. There isn't. A series of large banks, known as the Federal Reserve, control interest rates. So, and who is the Federal Reserve? That's a question that everybody would like to know the answer to, right? So, of course, we've heard certain politicians saying that they want to audit the Fed and so on. Part of this is an effort to know who the Fed is. Now, we know who founded the Federal Reserve. We know the original banks. They were Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, Chase Bank, and a series of... The price tag of the largest blocks of business in the world, the interest rates on corporate and international loans, not capitalism. Capitalism would be a market that rewards good behavior and punishes bad behavior, not guarantees that everybody has to do the same thing. So I'm not going to get into fractional reserve laws and all that stuff. I was seeing an aura, and it looked badly. There we go. I think that's a little better, right? Yeah, we don't know if you're buffering, if we're buffering, or if YouTube is buffering, or perhaps two of the three, or maybe all of the three. Who the knows? I have no idea. But it's starting to work on my nerves, and we're only 11 minutes into the stream, so cheers. This has not been a product plug of any kind. All right, so yeah, that's one of the stories. Interest rates have been hiked. The NASDAQ didn't like it, but it also didn't react very badly. Now, part of that is because, well, Google is part of that. Google stock went up yesterday because Google announced higher than expected earnings, higher than expected revenue, and was up 7% on the news. So, yeah. Now, Microsoft didn't really do very well yesterday. I don't know if there was some news from them or not. But hey, and keep in mind, folks, part of the reason why we cover that is because space weather does affect the economy. Obviously, if there's a major grid down scenario, that would affect the economy, obviously. And of course, the cyclical nature of solar activity has some effect on the economy. Peter Schiff would probably tend to agree. And let's talk about politics. So the top candidate right now appears to be RFK Jr. Now, if you don't know about me, well, I don't belong to a political party, and I never have, and I probably never will, because they do not align to my beliefs about things. My stance on most subjects is way too nuanced to belong to a political party, so I don't care about it. I'm only interested in pragmatic stuff, like making America not suck again. Yeah, stop digging the hole, folks. Stop digging the hole. Accountability always comes one way or the other. And, I mean, Nero can keep fiddling as Rome burns, but accountability's going to come. Eventually the barbarians are going to get a hold of that fiddle. So, that said, the poll that is in question here that we're talking about, the poll was a Harvard-Harris poll. So that shows he's got RFK Jr. has the highest favorability among any current political candidate. I find that just a ridiculous idea. So he's obviously not going to run as a Republican. I mean, he's a lifelong Democrat. You could say that he's a Kennedy Democrat. Huh, no pun intended. Yeah, he's a Kennedy Democrat. Which is, I mean, probably if John F. Kennedy were around today, he'd probably be a Republican. But in any case, so he's not going to run on the Democratic ticket. I don't suspect. I don't know how he would. He's not going to run on the Republican ticket. So what's he going to do? Run on a third-party ticket? That's just to guarantee that the Republican candidate's going to win. So, I mean, he's going to primarily take votes from Democrats, I would suspect. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Yes. So anyway, here are the numbers in this Harvard-Harris poll. Pretty interesting numbers. So these numbers represent favorability versus unfavorability, right? So I'll save RFK Jr. for last. Let's first talk about the incumbent president, Joe Biden. No malarkey Joe. You'll even be able to hear what I'm f***ing saying. All right, so, yeah. No malarkey Joe Biden came back with a 39% favorable and 53% unfavorable rating. 39% because what's going to happen? I mean, who are we going to run? We going to run DeSantis? Here are DeSantis' numbers. And when I say we, I don't mean we like I'm a Republican. I mean, who else? Who else is there to vote for president? So here are DeSantis' numbers. Again, Joe Biden's numbers are 39% favorable and 53% unfavorable. So that's sweet. Now, DeSantis, Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, he has got a 40% favorable and a 37% unfavorable. So a lot less unfavorable, but not a whole lot, only 1% more favorable than Biden. And I don't know what DeSantis is doing. I mean, that guy, he sounds sane and smart until the conversations get in depth, and then he sounds like a madman, frankly. So I don't know. Last but not least, we've also got Trump. Trump has a favorability rating of 45% and an unfavorability rating of 49%. So pretty similar in terms of being unfavorable to Joe Biden, a little bit less unfavorable than Joe Biden, and a lot more unfavorable than DeSantis. So far, this is a campaign of negativity, just straight up negativity. And so that's Biden, DeSantis, and Trump, and then last but not least, you've got RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., with a net favorable rating of 47% and a net unfavorable rating of 26%. So, yeah, I mean, none of these candidates are anybody that I would endorse. Generally, I would never endorse anybody on the channel anyway, just for business purposes. I mean, this is a monetized channel after all. And we, first of all, it isn't a political channel. So even if I did have a candidate that I wanted to endorse, I just wouldn't tell you. But I'll tell you. I'll tell you that I'm not hiding the endorsement of a candidate. I'm just simply not endorsing a candidate. So, you know, I'm not Scientific American magazine who decided to cash in its credibility and endorse the current president for president during the campaign. That's not science. So anyway, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know what the Republican Party's doing. I don't know what anybody's doing. Basically, the state of affairs when it comes to most activities that I see going on is just incompetence. I mean, I thought the year 2020 was going to be considered the year of incompetence. And then I thought the year 2021 was going to be considered the year of incompetence. And then I thought the year 2022 was considered the year of incompetence. And now in 2023, I'm seeing, wait for it, shocking levels of anybody, folks. I am a source of cosmic ray flux. Yes, cosmic rays are just pulsating out of me all the time. Maybe that's why it's easier for me to get a falcon to have dinner with an orca than it is to get anybody to pay me, as they're getting irradiated by interacting with me. I don't know what the deal is. I've always had issues with electronics, so yeah. So Son of Clay, yeah, maybe it's pure evil. But remember, folks, never attribute a conspiracy to that which is more easily explained by ignorance and stupidity. There is a lot more of that than there is concerted efforts to do a thing. There are a lot more people out there trying to do a thing and failing hard at it than there are vast groups of people keeping their mouth shut, which is something people are very bad at. There's no vast group of people spraying chemicals out of planes and most of these things are just little pieces to a big crappy puzzle, like a giant poop sandwich. Never attribute. Use Occam's razor, right? Is it a simpler explanation of the nonsense that you see going on around you to say that it's ignorance and stupidity, aka incompetence, or that it's a conspiracy with simply a name? By the way, the U.S., this is another thing that I constantly type on social media. The United States is not a democracy. I don't care what a letter from Thomas Jefferson said back in the 1800s or something, referring to it as our democracy. That doesn't make it a democracy. It is a constitutional republic. If you need one word to describe the U.S.'s form of government, it's a constitutional republic where you elect officials to go create laws. That's what it is. It isn't a democracy. It's representative government. If it was a democracy, you would be making laws. Are you making laws? What's that? No. You live in a tiny town in New England where you actually are making laws at the local level? Okay, that's a democracy. But the rest of it's a constitutional republic. So, I mean, I don't know why they keep saying it. You even hear people on the right side of things saying it. You hear moderates saying it. Our democracy, our democracy. It doesn't exist. You've got democratically elected officials who write laws. It's a constitutional republic. Colt 45 says, "You're being jammed, dude." Yeah, maybe. Or maybe there are internet outages. Or maybe there, I don't know. Maybe it's YouTube. Maybe it's Maybelline. Maybe I'm considering becoming a parody of women and starting to identify as one. I'm divulging the brand here by accident, folks. It's my hand is supposed to be covering it. So let's take a look and see if there are outages. You ever hear of thousandeyes.com? It's pretty sweet. There's some kind of a map. I don't know. I thought it would pop right up, but the heck? Let's try searching instead. There's nothing like searching for internet outages on the internet. So yeah, Thousand Eyes, it's thousandeyes.com/outages. And yeah, we do have a lot of outages here, so check it out. It's, what do we have? Now we're located in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, so... Ooh, that doesn't make it bigger. That makes it smaller. That's not what you want. So yeah, lots of outages around. MailChimp, some networks. So some of those are associated with internet infrastructure. Let's put up some different images here of the closest star and see if we're able to crash my internet connection that way. Here's 131 angstroms. And now I'm going to ramble about whatever I want. Yeah, so I Son of Clay, I don't know how RFK Jr. is going to run as a Democrat. The incumbent president is the de facto party leader for either party. So Biden has already stated that he's going to run. So I don't know how you're going to primary a standing president. It doesn't matter if he's competent or incompetent. And I'm reducing my green aura. There we go. Hey, there's a less of an aura now. I got to stop emitting cosmic rays. I'm gonna concentrate. No more cosmic ray emissions. Oh, okay. Yes, so there are some outages. It could be YouTube. It could be some other infrastructure that YouTube needs in order to have its servers up. Who knows? Were you aware that Google owns like 60% of the servers across the whole world? Or Alphabet? I guess Google. I don't know. I don't know where Alphabet ends and Google starts, but it is the monopoly of all monopolies throughout history. No big deal, folks. Just the evilest corporation that's ever lived, that's ever existed in known history. I mean, maybe there was a worse one, 400,000 years ago when perhaps people were more technologically advanced than they are today. How would we know? How would we know? It's just going back 4 Milankovitch cycles. No big deal. So yeah, it's a little bit troubling, honestly, because usually there's some candidate that everybody's excited about, and I don't see any viability to any of the candidates. I see no viability in No Malarkey Joe. I'll tell you what. What if No Malarkey Joe got a better vice president? How about that? What if No Malarkey Joe's vice president was, say, I don't know, more likable than Hillary Clinton instead of less likable than Hillary Clinton? I mean, think about it. The current vice president, Kamala, I can barely say the words, has got to be one of the least likable candidates in human history. I mean, being connected to covering up exculpatory information and criminal trials to keep people in jail when they deserve to be freed from jail, sleeping her way into the office in the first place. I mean, pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic. To be less likable than Hillary Clinton, you've really accomplished something there, Kamala. Just slow clap. Slow clap for Kamala. When we clap slowly, the slowness of our clap illustrates the slowness of our thinking, and the slowness of our thinking indicates our inability to do anything. So clap slowly, and don't get the clap by getting in the same room with Kamala, because clapping slow is a thing. When we clap slow together, the unity of our slow clapping reduce the sound of golf claps to a deafening silence or something. That quote brought to you by Kamala's speechwriter. I mean, I've never heard anything like it. How are people reading these things off of teleprompters? You don't read the speech before you go and say it to the whole country? What kind of insanity is this? The levels of incompetence that began in March of 2020 have been unprecedented in modern human history. I mean, bureaucrats can't get out of their own way, and nobody's able to do their own job. I mean, name a business that's competent. SmashOnMash.com. SmashOnMash.com/SmashTeam. The only competent business that I'm aware of. How do I know? I run it. Colt 45 says Ron DeSantis is deep state. Yeah, you guys don't like Ron DeSantis, huh? All right. Well, I mean, as far as, dude, I live in Pennsylvania, okay? The state where Tom Wolfe and Rachel Levine came from. Rachel Levine, okay? Everybody in Pennsylvania was forced to take health advice from Rachel Levine starting in March of 2020. And of course, like in many incompetent bureaucracies, the more incompetent you are, the more promoted you are. So, hey everybody, let's all take a moment to salute now Admiral Levine. Ah, yes, Admiral Levine, now Assistant Secretary of the U.S. and an Admiral in the Uniformed Medical Services or some stuff like that, some weird sixth branch of the military that I never heard of until I heard about formerly Richard Levine being promoted to Admiral Levine. Now wearing a uniform that looks like the Navy, and it's not the Navy. It is not the Navy. Oh, man. Swing low, sweet chariots. Can anybody tell me what's going on downstairs with... Just kidding, folks. Just blot that out of your mind. Just focus on the sun. Just look at the sun. Do not look at photographs of Rachel Levine. I mean, look at the sun on my screen. Don't go outside and blind yourself because you saw a photograph of Rachel Levine. Yeah, Pennsylvania became one of the most dangerous places in the whole world, along with Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York, I believe. They were some of the worst places in the world for, being in a nursing home and getting COVID and dying of it and all those sorts of delightful things. So, all right, so let's see. Yes, incompetent shite show. Colt 45. How old do you think I am? Why are you impressed? And how old are you? Those are the questions that I want to know the answers to. So yeah, so we've got, at least 3 stories to cover. The Fed raised rates. The implications of that is that it's going to help slow down the real estate market. So, for example, in Pennsylvania, it has been one of the in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, at least, is one of the hottest real estate markets in the whole country. It was top 7 last year around this time, and that caused real estate prices to get kind of high. So the higher the interest rates go, the lower the real estate prices go. They're inversely proportional because they raise the amount that people have to use for their down payment to keep their mortgage payments low enough that they can afford their mortgages and so on. So higher interest rates do cause real estate prices to drop, which is good timing for us since we are in the process of attempting to build an observatory. So that's one of the reasons why we're starting a nonprofit science foundation. We had our first board meeting just last week. So that was pretty exciting. In fact, that was that last Tuesday? Today's the 26th. Oh, wait, that was on the 17th. That was 9 days ago. So that must have been last Monday. So yeah, smashomash.org. It's going to become a thing, folks. It's going to become a thing. And, of course, the main reason for that is so people can donate to our cause to write a plausible theory underlying the solar sunspot cycles. So we finally have our 3rd board member, and so it's just a matter of funding the nonprofit agency application, waiting for it to get approved, and then once that happens, you'll be able to make tax-deductible donations to the Smash team. So there'll be we expect to form a 50c3 science foundation, and you can read about it on smashomash.com/forum. There is a forum thread about it. The main idea is to advance cosmology and human technology through the advancement of heliophysics, because we think we've discovered the only plausible mechanism underlying the solar sunspot cycles. So that's something that should be explained, and a little bit about the channel. If you're new to the channel, congratulations on realizing it exists. Let me explain a little bit about how the channel came about. So the reason that our channel exists and does the daily space weather videos is because I realized that nobody does it on YouTube. Nobody does the extended, full space weather content. I noticed several channels that were doing something resembling space weather, but it was somewhere in between space weather and nonsensical, ridiculous propaganda, and that I didn't like that. I'm not a big fan of taking in ridiculous and nonsensical propaganda. So it's just one of those things. You discover that there's a niche, and then rather than bitch, you just fill the niche. So that's the reason that the channel does the daily space weather content. And you know, what happened is I immersed myself in the data, and then I realized that I had gotten answers to questions not asked. So there were certain questions that I was asking, and you know, just to give you a brief synopsis of how I got started in cosmology, that was all the way back in about 1979. First started reading about cosmology back then, and I had some crazy theories back then when I was in like elementary school. And when I got to the mid-90s, I took college astronomy, and I thought there would be like a whole chapter about heliophysics, and nope. Nope. There was very limited information about how the sun works. I figured it would be there'd be some advancements. You know, back then, most astronomers didn't even use the word black hole. Most people referred to the core of the Milky Way galaxy as a massive radio source, because we can definitely see radio emissions coming from Sagittarius A star. Going for a PhD, I was definitely only going to do 4 years. I was doing 4 years or less. Okay, I might have done 5 years or something if I would have fallen behind on some credits or something like that. But there was no way I was doing 6 or 8 years more in college. I learned to read at age 3, so I didn't have to go to school, and that didn't work out. I was not pleased about this. So, and of course, I'm not one of these antisocial types. When I got to kindergarten, I realized that there was a room with 30 kids in it, and that the implications of 30 kids in the same room are that we could have really awesome football games and kickball games and so forth, right? So, you know, I wasn't a critic of school once I got there. So, but anyway, so I considered majoring in cosmology, but I didn't, because I wasn't really enjoying the college experience in the first place. I thought it really sucked. I saw the writing on the wall with a lot of nonsense already back then, and I was like, I'm out of here. See ya, son of clay. So I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to pursue pro cycling instead. Fun fact, I almost pursued pro football instead. Yes. So, of course, being a longtime skateboarder, I decided to pick up the less mainstream sport of bicycle racing in the form of mountain biking. In 99, went pro mountain bike, and then in 2001, made my road debut, where I became a time trial specialist, which is what I still am to this day. Hopefully going to hire a coach next year and get back on the scene. So, yes. All right, what else do we have? I'm just reading your comments here. And, of course, yes, the feature of all banana republics, folks, is rampant corporatocracy, corruption, a complete lack of accountability for all of the preferred elites, as they're called, a complete lack of accountability for all of those incompetents, and a brutal justice system for everybody else. So that is a feature that has been common to banana republics the whole time. The only difference between the U.S. is that it's not small. So it does fit all of the other definitions of the word banana republic. Clearly, two justice systems, accountability for thee, but not for me, said the emperor. And rampant corporatism, corruption, lack of accountability, and usually economic downturn also because of basically economic warfare being waged on portions of the population. So anyway, all right, so let me just get through your comments here. We're not going to display them on the screen today because of the setup that we're using. I'm using this lovely newscaster from space. Yeah, my microphone, it's full of space, like 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's actually keyed out pretty well at the moment. Not bad. I've got space in my head. View says NASA's lying about how sexy space is. I don't know. I think space is pretty hot. First of all, you don't have any COVIDiots up there, so that's one thing. No COVIDiots in space. And who knows? Maybe there's somebody on the International Space Station with a mask on their face right now. Who knows? Could be. All right, just reading your comments here. If you've got news stories that you'd like covered, just let us know in the comments. Once again, thanks to everybody who's left comments. And to the rest of you, you can go to hell. Go to hell, you lurkers. Just kidding, folks. We don't mind if you lurk. Lurk away. Colt 45 thinks I'm between 62 and 30. Yes. You have called it. You have called it. But that's not very adventurous. You've got to be a little bit better at guessing people's ages than between 30 and 62. I better be younger than 62, dude. All right, so I'm going to see if I can find any other interesting stories. I think there were some more stories to cover here, so let me just break out one of my, shall we say, unbiased news sources. Let's put up some other imagery here, too, while I'm at it. Let's put up the 304, 211, and 171 angstroms. That's a good one. Ah, you hate math. Well, you know what? Let me rant about math. Math. If you are good at anything, whether it's playing video games, if you're good at skateboarding is my favorite example because skateboarding is one of the hardest things that you could possibly do. If you are good at that, newsflash, you're good at math. If you're good at figure skating or you're good at, playing chess, all of these things are math because your brain is just a series of ones and zeros. All your neurons are doing is they're either firing or they're not firing. They're either connected or they're not connected, just like ones and zeros in a computer. This is part of the reason why people idiotically think that we're living in a simulation. A really ridiculous idea, really stupid, but hey, how would you know otherwise, right? That's the reason why The Matrix is a good story, all right? It's an old sci-fi tale, and it's because your brain is ones and zeros. Get this. The reason that alcohol lowers your inhibitions is because you have neurons in your brain that are specifically for inhibition. In other words, in order for you to decide not to do a thing, you have to have certain neurons that turn on. They're inhibition neurons. This is why Ritalin works for some kids who have ADD and ADHD, because it activates their neurons that make them decide to not do a thing. In other words, when you're faced, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. So there's a Rush quote for you. You know, Neil Peart understood it. You should too. The human brain is just like a computer. It does have a finite storage capacity. There does seem to be some ability to overwrite or perhaps rewrite sections of it. We're not exactly sure how that works. although it is looking more and more likely that there is a geographic location for things like memories. It's probably a series of neurons that need to be turned on for the memory to sort of be accessed in the normal way. And this is probably why dreams are so weird, because your temporal lobe gets funky, and that causes time to be compressed in a strange way. And, your temporal lobe lights up in a weird way. You get deja vu. It's sort of a known thing. I mean, it's quite mechanistic, really. And interestingly enough, that is quite mechanistic as well. So, yeah. And by the way, if you want to read about our crap theory about the actual plausible mechanism that drives the solar sunspot cycles, let me put it in the chat. Our theory is CRAPF. Not crap, CRAPF. CRAPF. And I can't tell you what it stands for. I'll give the whole thing away. So, but it's the only plausible theory that we can think of, and we used a process of both deductive and inductive reasoning to figure this out. Anyway, if you're good at anything, you're also good at math. I would bet the farm that if you took the world's top skateboarders and you picked out the ones who suck at math, and then you systematically taught them math in a way that was appropriate for the way they learn, you would probably find that they're actually very good at math, because skateboarding is some of the hardest math there is. So a thing like a sport, anything like a sport, right? Like if it's shooting 3-point shots in basketball, or throwing a 60-yard pass in football, or any of these sorts of really complex things. The decathlon, right? By Jenner, that person Jenner who won the decathlon back in '76, I guess it was. That requires a lot of math. You've got to do a whole bunch of different events, and it's all of those things, whether it's throwing a javelin or the high jump or the I don't know, what do they do, the marathon? It's all math, baby. It's all math. So I mean, understanding what your limits are in a bicycle race, that's all math. So anyway, still reading your comments here. Just allow me a moment. Biking, football, and flying. Yeah, that sounds like my type of dude. Colt 45. Yeah. Perhaps we should be pals. By the way, I'm a deadly defensive back, so I can play some positions on offense, but I like calculating collision courses. It's usually quite unfortunate for the person who has or is about to attempt to catch the ball, as in the open field, it is bad news if I'm there. I'm just the right size at about 6 foot 185. That, well, F equals MA. F equals MA, folks. Force equals mass times acceleration. And you definitely find this to be true. If you have a head-on collision with somebody who weighs 300 pounds, but you're moving at 40% higher speed than they are, you'll probably stand each other up and you'll both feel like you were in a car crash. Don't try this at home, folks. Crashing into people is generally bad for your brain health. So, yep, your brain is ones and zeros, folks. It's just a fact. And a little bit more about my education. Before I left college, I already had a vast understanding of human psychology because I did a ton of reading about it, starting with sleep and dreaming, before I even got to high school. And then I spent a lot of time learning about things like attention and memory and all kinds of stuff like that when I did get to high school. And then when I got to college, I figured, well, might be a good idea to get a psych degree, right? So I was kind of like a general science with a psychology major, I guess, is what you could really say it was. I ended up taking 83% of the core classes for a BS in psychology, and I couldn't take college anymore. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm pursuing pro sports. Back then, I discovered that I can run a 2-mile in world championship level times. So that was when I had to slap myself in the face and say, oh crap, you're world class fast at middle distance running. So, of course, that probably translates better to cycling than it does to football. Anyway. And yes, if you're wondering if the theory holds up, I've been trying to disprove my theory for probably like over 2 years now. I'd say pushing 3 years. My crap theory. I've been trying to disprove it because we real scientists, when we come up with a hypothesis, all we try to do is disprove it. Because especially when it's, well, I guess I can say it's kind of creepy to me. Now, some people don't think it's creepy. There are only a few who know by doing math on a chalkboard. It's just the way it is. So yeah, that's what happened. I mean, I considered majoring in cosmology, but I never stopped being a cosmologist. So, I've been reading the periodical publications the whole time since then, and there are certain weird things that are sort of scalable to larger scale structures in the universe. And now, that's not to say that the solar system is anything like the galaxy, but big stars and little stars have a lot of similarities. For example, with the sun, when you see it get bright at the equator, like it does at solar maximum, you notice that it's kind of dim at the poles. However, when the sun's kind of bright at the poles, what we call solar minimum, it's kind of dim at the equator. And this does scale out to the galactic scale. So galactic cores, when their polar fields, their polar radio jets are very bright, they tend to have dim galactic ecliptic disks. And when their ecliptic disks are bright, they tend to have dim jets. So that is sort of an important feature, perhaps something to do with magnetohydrodynamics. I'm not giving away my theory with any of this. But yeah, so we've got to write the paper on this, and I suspect that what we'll have to do is write a preliminary paper, and then we'll have to probably put out 3 or 4 or half a dozen more papers further quantifying and coming up with further evidence. Because the goal in science, folks, is to get everybody on the same page. You have to say a thing. You have to say a thing before anybody incorporates a thing into their thinking and their models of extragalactic scale motions and things like that, right? So, when we say cosmology, you're talking about things that are outside the solar system and beyond. I mean, it doesn't necessarily only apply, in my opinion, to extragalactic scale structures. I think it applies. Cosmology, I think, applies to even the sun at this point, but certainly the way the sun interacts with the interstellar environment, I consider that cosmology, and everything beyond that I consider to be cosmology. So, it's ultimately it is the study of the origin, structure, and motions of large-scale universe structures. So, Views says, look to Chinese solar science. Yeah, maybe I will. So yeah, I suspect what we'll have to do, we'll probably have to ask National Science Foundation for a grant. And that's probably how we'll get the observatory built. We want to have a solar telescope so that we can show you ground-based imagery whenever it's clear enough to do so. So that's part of the plans, folks. We want to have our own solar telescope, and of course, we want to pay our co-writer. So that's sort of on the near horizon for the for the operation. Where was I? I got a little bit sidetracked there. It's what you call stream of consciousness. How about 304 angstroms? I like it. That's just today we're showing, by the way. Oh, it shows the time and date stamps. Perfect. Alrighty. So Colt 45, you've read the theory. You must be a Gold Smash Team member, or maybe somebody told you about it or something. I don't know. Keep in mind, folks, that I cannot keep track of who's a member and who's not a member. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, so it's, trying to maintain my ability to forecast what that thing is doing. It's a thing that you have to stay in practice with. It's like speaking a foreign language. If you don't stay in practice, you're going to get rusty real quick. So that's a thing. And just bear with me here in a minute. And I'm back. Views has been tracking all my members as members. You're tracking our members' members. We hope you don't mean their junk. All right, so let's see here. By the way, when my crap hypothesis passes peer review, it's going to be the most important science paper in hundreds of years, because current heliophysics is based on some 1850s thinking. So, the idea. Let me tell you about some of the stuff I don't believe. I don't believe that there is a nuclear fusion dynamo in the core of stars. I think the core of stars are made of. I think they're solid. I think they're solid bodies. I think outside of those solid bodies, I think there is liquid material, condensed matter. And then I think outside of that is the common plasma that everybody's obsessed with, that causes people to think that the universe is electric and everything's electric and yada, yada, yada. So that's what I think. I don't think the universe is electric. I certainly don't think stars are electric. I believe that stars' behavior is driven by, one, their intrinsic properties, that they are made of condensed matter, superionized material, like liquid metallic hydrogen, or perhaps solid metallic hydrogen inside of that. And I think those intrinsic properties are the properties that cause that to behave the way it does. Now, it is a symphony of things happening because you've got gravity at work. That's why it's spherical. But there seem to be a lot of common modalities. The more we look at things in space, there are certain patterns that seem to develop. And keep in mind, folks, things like helioseismology would not exist if the sun was made of a gaseous plasma. So, the lambda dark matter, the cold dark matter model, the concordance model of stellar evolution states that there is a fusion dynamo inside the star, and the pressure from the nuclear firestorm inside of the star is pushing out against gravity, which is pushing in, and that's how it's able to maintain that very consistent size and shape. It's not sussed out by really much of the data at all, basically none of it. And, if you haven't read Robitaille's paper, read Robitaille's paper. It's almost 10 years old now. It's published on October 1st, 2013 in Progress in Physics. It's called 40 Lines of Evidence for Condensed Matter, the Sun on Trial, Liquid Metallic Hydrogen as a Solar Building Block. So that paper will be cited in our crap theory paper when we do write that. And Yeah, we're going to be organizing a holiday, by the way, for October 1st. We're going to it's going to be Cosmology Day. That's coming. We're going to organize a holiday called Cosmology Day. So yeah, October 1st, 2023 marks the 10th year anniversary of 40 lines of evidence for condensed matter, the sun on trial, liquid metallic hydrogen as a solar building block. Just rolls off the tongue, right? Interestingly enough, the guy that wrote the paper, Pierre-Marie Robitaille, got his first PhD in, wait for it, zoology. Yeah, zoology. Pretty berserk, right? Later, he got a PhD in chemistry, and then finally, I think radiology. Became the chair of the Ohio State University Department of Medicine Radiology Department chair, and then was eventually recommended to step down from his chair position. And of course, Robitaille is cited in thousands of science papers. I believe still holding the world record for nuclear magnetic resonance imaging. Robitaille stuck his head inside of a magnet that was so strong that people thought it was going to kill him. And he said, no, that's not the way the physics works. And guess what happened? They took a photograph of his brain, and they found that gray matter isn't that gray. They found tiny capillary-sized structures inside the human brain that were never seen before. Was he interested in animal magnetism? Interesting. Yes, magnets. They are increasingly important, folks. And, keep in mind that with rare earth magnets, you can make systems that are nearly frictionless. Because if you have the right kind of case for your rotating parts, the case can be made out of repelling magnets, and you can have rare earth magnets inside of there that also repel each other. And now you've got a system that is only subjected to air resistance, no mechanical friction whatsoever. And if you put it in basically a vacuum, you've got rotating parts that rotate with almost no friction. So what's Earth going to be like when your bicycle hubs and your bicycle bottom bracket and your automobile hubs and all of the rotating parts, jet engines, they have no grease? Grease is a thing that you don't want, folks. Grease is bad news. Grease is just an old solution to a new problem. Creating machinery that rotates at high speeds, for example. So the ability to generate power and stuff like that, it's all gonna change coming soon. And super ionized materials, we believe, are part of that coming revolution in technology. So it's not just cosmology that is going to be revolutionized by not only the upcoming explanation of the solar sunspot cycles, but human technology as well. So, and here's a quote from Robitaille. All right, here's what he said on the phone. He said, "If humans can harness the power of lattice-confined fusion, it will change the course of the human species." So that's some sort of an advancement. I don't know exactly what he means. He probably is aware of some invention that I'm not aware of. But yeah, I don't know. Super ionized materials, folks. Lattice-confined fusion. Not something I've done a lot of research on, but it is one of the theories as to what's going on around the surface of the sun. So, and the old school idea that the fusion is only happening in the core, the fusion is happening in the core, not on the surface of stars, it does something that it cripples. Now, what he means is that the lattice structure The lattice structure decides where the fusion happens because of its intrinsic properties. So that is what stars do. That's one of the things that stars are doing. Their magnetic fields are largely responsible for most of the stuff we see there. So the reason that you see those filaments hanging off the edge is because their magnetic fields are allowing that plasma to defy gravity and be thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometers away from the chromosphere. Even though there's a massive gravitational force pulling them down, the magnetic force is overpowering that. So that's what happens. And we think that when a CME happens, a coronal mass ejection, that what happens is the basically part of the filament collapses, and now you've got electrons that are rushing out there to perform chemical reactions with those mainly protons. It's mostly hydrogen out there. But when those things are forced to take a vastly different path, they emit radiation the same way they do when they show up in Earth's magnetic fields. And so that's why we believe that a coronal mass ejection causes a solar flare and not vice versa. Because, again, a different pathway is made. So when you see those giant loops in the corona, like that one up there, that one right there, that is the Nicki Minaj filament, as named on X, formerly known as Twitter, the worst rebrand in the last decade. There's material rushing back and forth, so that it's going whoosh, 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 whoosh. There's material going in both directions there. And if you suddenly disconnect one end of that filament, now some of that material has to make a decision and go someplace very, very differently, which causes massive acceleration and deceleration, and then it emits a bunch of radiation. That's what we believe a solar flare is. So it's not rocket science. It's a little more complicated than that. But and then, of course, there's a lot of chemical reactions going on, as there is, space. It's not empty. So, anyway. All right, well, let me see if I can find any more news stories for you here. By the way, if you've never checked it out, try ground.news. It'll actually evaluate your favorite news sites. It'll determine if your news sites lean left or lean right, or if they're high factuality or low factuality, and then it'll show you a series of different sources for the same story. It's quite good because, for example, if you're going to, let's say you're arguing with somebody on Facebook, right? This is what people do this all the time. People argue with somebody on Facebook, and then rather than actually type a response, they'll just put a link to an article. And you got to be selective about that, right? So, if you hate CNN, you don't want to put up a CNN article. You want to put up an article from a news source that you trust, and that whoever you're arguing with will not refute, right? So that's one great feature of Ground News, because it'll show you like a dozen different news sources on any given subject. It'll tell you if it leans left, leans right, center, high factuality, low factuality, etc. So try it out. Let us know if you like it. Hunter Biden pleads not guilty as the deal falls apart. So Hunter Biden was up on tax charges. I don't know the specifics of it, and I don't particularly care. But the plea deal fell through, so Hunter is, I guess he's SOL, I don't know. All right, give me a minute here. I'm going to switch to the mobile device here because I don't want to have conflicting software. Oh, I like this story. Maybe you've heard this story about Hillary Clinton. There's a great tweet by Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton said, "Hot enough for you? Thank a MAGA Republican. Or better yet, vote them out of office. She added a quote from Kamala there at the end. The quote was, as she impersonates a Wizard of Oz character. Yeah, she thinks MAGA Republicans have made the planet hot. That's pretty berserk. There were some good responses on Twitter, like, don't worry, Hillary, where you're going, it's much hotter, or you might want to try to get used to the heat. Yeah. Ice Cube's been appearing in the news. Yeah, Ice Cube. Because he's the wrong N-word to F with. Yeah. Ice Cube. Let's see what he was on. He was like driving around with Tucker Carlson and stuff. So, yep, Biden pleads not guilty, so I guess there's going to be a trial. That should be fun. You think that'll be good for presidential candidacies? What would it be like if Donald Trump Jr. was on tax evasion charges right now? What would that be like? Would cities be burning down across the country? So the Dow keeps going up, by the way. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, the top 20 largest stocks in the U.S., they improved. So value stocks went up. The NASDAQ didn't go down very much. Again, Microsoft went down yesterday. Google went up yesterday. And I mean, talk about a bubble, the whole NASDAQ market. It's absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. Apple, Alphabet, Meta, Tesla, Microsoft. I mean, I don't know who's buying this stuff. I don't know what fund managers are doing. Fund managers must be on vacation, or maybe they're in mental institutions. I don't know. I believe those companies are probably overvalued. Now, don't take that as investment advice. I'm not licensed to give investment advice. I didn't even look up the EPS numbers, the earnings per share on those. I don't know what they're trading at. I don't know what the PE ratio is, the price to earnings ratio. I didn't look it up. I didn't exhaustively pour through all their charts like I used to do when I was a day trader back in the late 1990s. I didn't do any of that stuff. But, yeah, the NASDAQ, it's looking a little overbought to me. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Did you know who the world's largest beer producer is? Is it Yuengling Brewery from Pottsville, Pennsylvania? That is not an endorsement for Yuengling Brewery, America's oldest continuously operating brewery. What is the world's largest beer producer? It turns out that it's China. China produces more beer than anybody else. Okay, China. They probably stole all the recipes from the U.S. Great American recipes from the U.S. of A. Stolen by China. Just like Callaway Golf Club designs. Stolen by China. Our stealth aircraft technology stolen by China. China. Colt 45. You got to learn how to say it right. You got to say China. China. Like you have an upper respiratory, like you have sinusitis. China. You got to say it like Trump. China. China. Stolen U.S. intellectual capital. Okay? From China. China. Yeah, China is the world's largest beer producer. Oh, I see what you did there. They steal everything. Yeah, they also aluminum everything. They titanium everything, magnesium, and most of all, they lithium everything. Oh, yeah, they got so many electric vehicles over there. They just have no infrastructure to charge the electric vehicles. The same problem everybody has. The same problem nobody can get around. You can switch your whole fleet to electric vehicles today, but can you charge them? And how far do they go? That's what I want to know. Some some holes in some business models there, exposed by infrastructure and raw materials issues. They steal everything, okay? In China. So the U.S. is the second largest producer of beer. Do you know who the largest drinkers of beer are? You might think it's the Germans. A lot of people think it's the Germans. It's actually the Czechs. Yeah, the Czechs. Shout out to Troll McClure. I believe he's in Czechia. Yeah, the Czechs. They're the largest per capita beer drinkers, followed by the Irish. They just chug everything. And then, last but not least, finally, Americans per capita drink the third most beer. And then I think Germany is fourth. Or Germany might be third and the U.S. fourth. I can't remember. But yeah, China's the biggest producer. Brazil getting an honorable mention there. Shout out to Bruce the Batman. Yeah, Brazil producing only about 50,000 beverages less produced last year than the U.S. China producing 360,000. The U.S. only producing 194,000. So that's interesting. The African continent saw a 6.6 million HL. HL? What the hell is HL? Show your units. Okay. Oh, 100 liters. Okay. So, wow, that's 1.94 million liters produced by the U.S., 3.6 million liters produced by China, 1.4 million liters produced by Brazil, and Mexico coming in fourth place there at 1.4 million liters of beer. China. Everybody can say, everybody take a moment, take a deep breath, and learn to say China like Trump, like you have a sinus infection. China. You could enhance it by holding your nose. China. I heard. Powell tries to convince the market. That's Powell. That's the chair of the Federal Reserve. The Fed chair tries to convince the market to please stop fighting the Fed, which may hike one more time. I don't know. I would be surprised. And for more information about this, maybe listen to Peter Schiff. We don't agree on everything. If you haven't subscribed to the Peter Schiff channel, it's recommended. It's highly recommended. Peter Schiff, yeah, he does podcasts for free, and then people throw money at him. Even though he doesn't need it, he's ultra rich. But people pay him a ton of money to put out videos. Because for some reason, I don't know why this is, folks. Why is it that people throw money at the rich and withhold money from people who are broke? What the hell is up with that? Doesn't make the slightest bit of sense. I've been proving since 1999 that I can do a lot with a little. Yeah, Peter Schiff and I don't agree on everything, but generally on monetary policy, we do. Big time. Big time. Okay, bigly. We agree bigly. Okay. All right, what the heck was I doing here? I'm very sidetracked. I don't usually take naps, but today I did. I watched some boring videos on YouTube, and they put me to sleep. No, I will not tell you what channel it was. All right, what else do we have here? What's up with corporate real estate, folks? Commercial real estate is just in the shiter. It's in the turlet. Corporate real estate. Why? Because of terrible bureaucratic policy. People are evacuating cities in droves. And really, the real estate market here in the Lehigh Valley has not crashed yet. So, one of the reasons why the real estate market is so berserk here in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, we're only an hour from New York and Philadelphia. So lots of people that are getting the hell out of those two cesspools of corruption and incompetence are coming to Lehigh Valley. So it's not so good because it's driving up real estate prices, it's driving up rents. A lot of those people are maintaining their extremely high-paying jobs in the inner cities and commuting all the way out there, so they're making a massive amount more money than the locals are, and they're driving up the prices of everything. Now, of course, that will not continue forever. And of course, the cities aren't going away, folks. They're, people will come up with solutions to fix the problems that are happening there. It's just a matter of time. And speaking of matters of time, hold on. I've got a mission to accomplish. Is doing, by the way. There are still outages, it looks like. So quite a lot of outages here. So some major internet hubs there: Netflix, MailChimp, and we use MailChimp actually, believe it or not. MailChimp is one of our plugins at smashomash.com. So it doesn't look too bad though as far as outages go. Let's do our standard, and I'm going to put on a headset just in case audio starts to play. I don't want the video to be copyright protected, so put on my invisible headset because it's green. Check it out. All right, so yeah, there's the latest news. R.I.P. Sinead O'Connor, because nothing compares to neck tattoos. UFO hearing takeaways. All right, that's a thing. Of course, I'm sure most of you have heard about UAPs. UFO hearing happening today on Capitol Hill. What do you think about that, folks? Sounds like an interesting story indeed. And I've not been following because, well, I don't think they're from another planet. I think those UAPs are straight out of Earth. Why is that? Because I don't see any evidence that there is anybody out there. I don't care if the Pentagon said that they have spacecraft from a different planet. That's just a way for them to avoid admitting that they built the spacecraft. Okay? So, I mean, look, there are places to hide, okay? If I were an extraterrestrial, I would not tell humans that I was there, first of all. So, this doesn't suggest that there's any evidence that they exist. However, how do you do that? Well, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence continues. It just doesn't find anybody. So, is it because they're hiding? Maybe. I would be hiding. I would definitely not tell humans that I was around. But, yeah. There are some advanced technologies that are on this planet that are interesting to say the least. And, there is evidence in the geologic record that, everybody knows about the Great Pyramid, the mysteries of how it was built and so forth. But there's a lot more stuff than that. There are a lot more things in that. There are some other monolithic sites, where huge blocks of stone were moved dozens of miles, even though they weighed dozens of tons and things. So I suspect that if there is technology that was discovered that looks like it's of extraterrestrial origin, that it was built by humans. I just don't believe in aliens. I don't believe in them. Because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And where is it? Where is it? Where are they? I don't see it. I see a bunch of stuff that looks just simply built by humans. I do not believe that there are extraterrestrials. This is one thing I completely agree with Elon Musk on. Yeah, Elon Musk and I agree about extraterrestrial intelligence. There ain't none. I'm not saying that there is none. I'm saying there's no evidence of any. There's no compelling. I mean, look, in order for me to cloak myself, what do I really have to do? I have to create some kind of an output mechanism on this side of me, and I have to project what's on this side of me toward this side of me, right? That would essentially make you transparent, like the Predator. You know, in the original Predator movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger from the 1980s, you know, Predator, the original one, the good one. I thought I heard a thing. Yeah, I simply do not believe it. I don't care if the Pentagon said we have alien spacecraft. I don't care what they said. I just don't care. I do not believe them. Because look, they have incentive to say, we've got stuff here, we've got crazy stuff, but we don't know how it works. We don't know how it works, and we certainly didn't build it. I mean, isn't that what you would say? What if you've invented some stuff that you don't want anybody to know was invented, and then they find out that it was invented? You'd be like, I didn't make it, I just found it somewhere. It crashed from space. It came from space. It's like what an 8-year-old would say. Just reading your comments here. Just bear with me a minute. Let's put up my house favorite wavelength. The illustrious and lovely 171 angstroms wavelength. We did have at least 2 M-class flares today, by the way, folks. And 171 angstroms sucks at showing flares, but it's great at showing the lower corona. Yeah, the lower corona. That's where the action happens. The lower corona. Right? You know, the real action that's going on is at the corona chromosphere transition, the place where the 10.7 centimeter radial flux comes. That is the sweet spot of solar activity. So there's some nuclear fusion going on there. And dag, check out this massive sunspot rising up here. Man, oh man. That thing looks bulky. Is that a sunspot yet? Let's take a look. Dag. That is another huge sunspot rising. We did cover it this morning, but we didn't have a good view of it yet, so here's a little better view. And it's big. It's certainly beta gamma class. I mean, pretty sure I see a north and then a south pole umbra there. As far as this one, it's now growing a south pole umbra. In front, so I don't know. I mean, it's a reverse polarity sunspot, sort of. But now it's sort of corrected itself. So we've got a south pole umbra here. So I don't know. It's not really what you'd call a south pole umbra. I mean, a reverse polarity sunspot. It's, of course, the main umbra is still that large one. That is still North Pole. But I don't know. I would say that is just a regular solar cycle 25 sunspot that had sort of a delayed development. It was like a special needs sunspot. It was developmentally delayed. It was handicapped. Which for some reason reminds me of a great quote from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know, there was one season when they kept hearing stuff about evil, but evil that comes from beneath, right? It was like season 5, I want to say. It's evil, but it comes from beneath. And Buffy and Willow are talking about this. Willow played by Allison Hannigan. And they're talking about this, and Willow says, not really a shower. Like, we're getting showered with evil. And Willow's like, not really a shower. And Buffy's like a bidet. Like a bidet of evil. I don't know why it reminded me of that. That's just a great quote. Like a bidet of evil. Evil that comes from beneath. Like a bidet, but of evil. Because a regular bidet is not evil, right? All right. What else do we have here? The origins of the Predator movie got spook disclosure all over it. Oh, that's pretty cool. Who knew? Maybe that's part of what facilitated Mr. Schwarzenegger becoming governor of California. Evil is inside your thoughts. Oh, that's a great point, Bruce. Evil is indeed in everybody's thoughts. Because every man features a battle between good and evil. The most neutral people, they're not really neutral. They're just, nobody's winning the battle. The evil's pulling one way, the good is pulling the other way. The neutral doesn't care. And if you've got equal amounts of good and evil, you'll just be neutral. But definitely have evil thoughts. And take command of them. All right, so let's see. Sinead O'Connor croaked. Federal Reserve hiked rates. Hunter Biden's going to face a hearing. UFO hearing key takeaways. Here we go. Here are the key takeaways as reported by CBS News. Right there. The UFO hearing at Congress, let's see, a former military intelligence officer turned whistleblower called David Grush. Grush? I think it's Grush. David Grush, who served 14 years as an intelligence officer in the Air Force and National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Maybe I ought to put in an application. The Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Geez. I think I may have to ask for access to some of their instruments. He appeared before the House Oversight Committee's National Security Subcommittee alongside 2 former fighter pilots, each of which who had some experience with UAPs, which is now what we call UFOs. Back in the 40s, they were called flying saucers. Now they're called UAPs. In the meantime, they were called UFOs. Now they're called unidentified aerial phenomenon. And look, I have no problem with this. It's unidentified aerial phenomenon. It's like, what if somebody comes to the Lehigh Valley during summertime and they've never seen fireflies before, right? And then they're outside and they're looking up in the air and they see a bunch of flashing lights, fireflies, also known as lightning bugs. And they go, "Whoa, UAPs, bro, UAPs." Until somebody tells them that it's fireflies, those are UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, right? Just like UFOs. The reason they got rid of UFOs is because it's not a flying object, right? If it's somehow defying gravity, if it's creating its own gravitational field that repels Earth's gravitational field, and that's how it stays aloft or whatever, it's not really flying. Flying is like using flight control surfaces to create lift, like in a helicopter or an airplane. Did you know that you have to have a fixed-wing airplane license in order to get a rotating-wing airplane license? Bill Burr, he's a helicopter pilot. He'll be the first guy to tell you, you can't get a helicopter license until you get a fixed-wing license. Why? Because all of the same rules apply. It's just harder to fly helicopters. Planes are safer than helicopters. Helicopters are way more complicated. So, anyway, UAPs. What was the result? Quote, "We're going to uncover the cover-up, and I hope this is just the beginning of many more hearings and many more people coming forward about this," said Representative Tim Burchett, a Republican from Tennessee. The UAP issue, yes. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments. Again, let me just reiterate. I do not believe they come from outer space. I think we might have found human technology that's buried deep in the earth or something like that. That's entirely plausible. I do not believe that there are alien spacecraft from different planets that have been captured, crashed. I just don't believe it. Because if you're smart enough to get here from a different solar system, how the hell are you going to crash? What? Really? You're going to crash? Somebody's going to shoot a missile at you or something, or a laser beam, and you're not going to be able to do something about it? Really? I find this ridiculous. I mean, look, maybe there's somebody from this solar system who has really crude technology or something. I don't know. But look, consider all possibilities, right? This is a thing I learned in 2nd grade. Productive thinking. Yeah, productive thinking. Don't jump to conclusions. That's where I'm going to end the video, actually, because this has been going on too long. So, don't jump to conclusions. Until you have all of the variables, you certainly cannot make all of the conclusions, right? So, if you're sitting in a dark room and there's a candle at the other side of the room, and you see the candle go out, let's pause right at that moment, right? You're there, you're looking at the candle, and all of a sudden it goes out. Does that mean it actually went out? What if a curtain dropped in between you and the curtain, in between you and the candle? How would you know, right? So don't jump to conclusions, and don't assume. If you assume, you'll make an ass out of you, but not me. So yeah, think productively. Don't jump to conclusions. Try to figure out all of the possible scenarios. This is how you apply deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning, and who knows, maybe you'll even be able to tell me how that works. We're hoping. In the meantime, I will keep trying to prove myself wrong, and I will keep Mensa-ing, making America not suck again. So do your part. And the reason that we have the products that say Mensa and Mansa, make Earth not suck again and make America not suck again, is that it's up to you to make your local region not suck. So as far as what the results were with the UAP hearing, there's nothing new. There's nothing new. It's just Congress like, hey, what do you think it was? It's some stuff that flies around real fast with what's the right word? No visible means of support, right? It's there, but we don't know how it's there or what it's doing or what it wants, etc. Of course, they had, pretty anomalous heat signatures in that they weren't hot, they weren't cold, they were kind of cold, really. I mean, like with respect to jet engines, they're very cold. So, the objects were between 5 and 15 feet in diameter. One of them came within 50 feet of the aircraft. I just think it's man-made technology. I think some stuff that was known about all the way back in World War II times has just been adapted with more modern versions of the same technology. That's my best guess. But again, if I were an extraterrestrial, I wouldn't tell humans that I was there. They would, it's like Star Trek, right? The Prime Directive, you're familiar with Star Trek? The Prime Directive, right? Don't interfere with emerging technological civilizations until they have the ability to travel faster than the speed of light. That's the Prime Directive. The Prime Directive is when extraterrestrial entities figure out how to travel faster than the speed of light, we won't be able to hide from them anymore, because now they'll be able to end up in our neighborhood very quickly. So let's go talk to them to make sure that they aren't psychos. That's the basis of the Prime Directive, right? The Prime Directive in Star Trek, the reason that's there, it's for self-preservation. I mean, ultimately, that is why you do it. Like Star Trek wants to make it sound like, oh, we don't want to interfere with the poor natives. We don't want to ruin their historical evolution and affect their civilization and things like that. No, we don't want to do that. It's like, really? Is that the reasoning? The reasoning is because you don't want them showing up on your doorstep and saying, hey, why did you not tell us that you existed sooner? You could have told us that masks and lockdowns are ineffective. I don't know. Just saying. By the way, we've got some controversial stuff on the screen right over there. Right over there. You see that cluster of stars over there? I'll close out with this. That cluster of stars right over there, that is the core of the radio galaxy Cygnus A. So the star background that we show all the time on the channel is the constellation Cygnus. And there's one very bright star in that background. That is Alpha Cygni, also known as Deneb, the tail of the swan in the constellation Cygnus, Alpha Cygni, the brightest intrinsic object visible from Earth. And that right there, that cluster right over there on the right side of the screen, that is the core of the radio galaxy Cygnus A. A couple interesting things about it. First of all, you can see gravitational lensing in front of it. So you see those little blue streaks there? Those are background stars or background galaxies, probably. Yeah, background galaxies. And as the light passes by the core of the galaxy Cygnus A, light is refracted by something. Maybe it's not gravity, but maybe it is. Anyway, it's lensing, because those two little blue streaks there, they're getting closer, and oh my God, they're getting closer and closer. Again, Cygnus A is a radio galaxy. Interestingly enough, despite being estimated at over 500 million light years distance, it's the second brightest radio source in the entire sky. Second only to that radio source. So, yeah, Cygnus A. That itself is controversial. Yeah, 2112. What's up with that? Neil Peart knew something about Cygnus. What's up with that? Yeah, 2112. It talks about Cygnus. I don't know. Cygnus contains the only known cosmic ray point source, which is also Deneb, the high mass X-ray binary. Cygnus X3 is the high mass X-ray binary that orbits a Wolf-Rayet star. It's a very bizarre thing. You can read about it on our forum at smashomash.com/forum. Yeah, Rush. It's a band I started to listen to back in the 1980s. And it's the second brightest radio source in the entire sky, even though it's estimated at over 500 million light years distance. So it's an interesting galaxy, to say the least. It has very bright radio jets. So it's a very interesting galaxy in that the radio jets are really, really bright, and the elliptical galactic disk is actually kind of dim. It is It is an elliptical galaxy as far as we can tell, so it's not shaped like a spiral, it's just kind of shaped like a sphere. Perhaps an indication that the major stars at its core are not orbiting on an ecliptic plane. Maybe they're orbiting on a really irregular series of orbits that are like perpendicular to the ecliptic plane or something like that. That's a plausible explanation of how we would get a very large galaxy that does not have the features of a spiral galaxy. So, anyway, as far as that Senate hearing about UAPs, we should have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come, said Democratic Rep. Jared Moskowitz of Florida. Quote, several of us are going to look forward to getting some answers in a more confidential setting. I assume some legislation will come out of this, said GOP Representative Glenn Grothman, the subcommittee's chairman. So, yeah, I mean, maybe there's some stuff that the pilots are not allowed to tell Congress. I don't know. I mean, maybe they don't want to make it a matter of public record. There could be national security issues here because if there are glaring issues with respect to the technological capabilities of the sensor systems of the F-18s that are typically associated with these sightings, or the weapon systems and so on, even things like jamming technology could be involved. So these are not things you want to be public information. For example, you don't want the public to know what the range of your nose cone radar is in your fighter jet, because if they know what the range is, they might be able to shoot a missile at you from a farther distance than you can shoot at them. Air superiority, it's still a thing, right? If your enemies can rain death upon you from the sky, you can't win a fight because they'll bomb you and you'll be dead. Winning fights while dead is not advisable. That is the way to lose fights. So, yeah, it could be national security issues. But guess what? That doesn't convince me that it's not man-made technology. So I'll just end it there. One thing that's definitely man-made technology is the SDO. Maybe it includes some alien technology. Who knows? Some people think that Mylar and solid-state circuits are alien technology. Some people think that Stalinist Russia flew some crazy fake-looking UFOs over Roswell, which crashed, and they had like surgically altered little people in the spacecraft to make it look like they were aliens or something like that. There are all kinds of crazy theories about this stuff. So, I mean, I won't get into it, but I don't spend too much time talking about this because, again, I don't believe that it comes from outside the Earth. I think anybody who's smart enough to make it here from a different solar system or even a different planet, frankly, is too smart to crash or to be susceptible to the weapons, jamming, etc. of Earthlings. I don't think that it's a thing. So, anyway, yeah, man-made, just like Velcro, right? That's part of the space program. Like that, some of the stuff that Elon Musk is doing, I'm a huge supporter of. I was calling for electric vehicles since the 1980s, folks. Why? Because of efficiency. I've been calling for private space flight forever because of efficiency. NASA's toilet costs $6,000. SpaceX's toilet costs $600, probably. Why? Because it has to vacuum your poop out. Yeah, it has to vacuum your poop out. Otherwise, your poop ends up in 0G, and nobody wants poop floating around and getting in the instruments and getting in your eye. Nobody wants fecal coliform bacteria in their eye in space. That leads to bad missions. So, anyway, it is definitely time to close out this live stream. But thanks for tuning in, folks. It was a delight ranting at you and reading your delightful comments. If you viewed this video in syndication, aka not live, leave a comment anyway. We do read all comments, even if we are unable to answer all of them. So thanks again, viewers. Oh, check it out. There's David May. David May, perhaps a new viewer there. I don't know where you... Oh, the hat. There are hats on the Redbubble site. So if you look below the video, you'll find links in the description. You can get a Mensa hat, a bunch of different hats available there. So check that out, the Redbubble shop. In the meantime, thanks everybody for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing the Smash News Network least busted name in news exists. We're frankly surprised that you've realized it exists. And we do intend to come back at you tomorrow with another Daily Space Weather video, the most comprehensive daily space weather in the known universe. So that's about it. See you soon. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.